It's a broad SEO. To do SEO well, it's a broad topic now, and it's in depth. But I think for the point of this episode, we're really going to focus on those things that are easy to do, things that commonly small businesses using e-commerce neglect to do. So
you're listening to GrazeCart, a show that shares the secrets to selling perishable food products online. The show and advice is brought to you by the team at Seven Sons, which is an 8-figure e-commerce business that started completely from scratch. Each episode, we bring you one topic, 3 strategies, and one tangible resource to continue your learning and put you on the fast track in your own e-commerce journey. Let's begin. All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of GrazeCast. This is Brooks and Blaine Hitzfield with Seven Sons and GrazeCart. This is going to be another top 3 episode where we're going to be diving deep into what are our primary top 3 tips when it comes to SEO. So Blaine, do you maybe want to start off this episode by defining, I would assume many of those who are listening know what SEO means, but for those who maybe don't, and that's a familiar term, but yet they don't quite know what that definition is, can you give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, well, real quick, SEO stands for search engine optimization, and but really these days it goes well beyond search engine optimization. It's almost like it almost extends as far as like getting PR. I mean, getting news information about you. It's a broad SEO. To do SEO well, it's a broad topic now, and it's in depth. But I think for the point of this episode, we're really going to focus on those things that are easy to do, things that commonly small businesses using e-commerce neglect to do. So the easy wins.
So the things that we really want to see people do when you're starting out, the foundational things that really set you up for long-term success, that if you do early, it pays back in dividends, almost like compound interest.
Exactly.
So search engine optimization. So basically optimizing the way that you would appear in search results on browsing platforms such as Google and other browsers out there. Primarily, we're talking about Google because, of course, they dominate this market.
Right, and the beauty of it, Brooks, is that for one thing, it's about knowing what to do. It's not really having a big budget. You just need to know what are some of the basic things, and that's why most people really don't do much with SEO. They're overwhelmed by it. They don't know what to do. And it's high residual work. And we talk about that a lot around Seven Sons here. What can we do once and it's always working for us? So it's long-term, high residual work, and it's low cost. It's a matter of knowing what to do. And I think, Brooks, a lot of people don't dive into SEO that much because they feel like it's too difficult to compete. I mean, all the thousands of businesses now, that are farms and companies that are trying to rank high for the term grass-fed beef. But there's a lot of tips and tricks around local SEO, Brooks, that really will make a difference. And there's just foundational things you need to do now. You may not see a difference immediately, but if you don't do it and you wait 3 or 4 years, you'll be 3 or 4 years behind when it comes to SEO.
What I really like about what we're going to share is we're going to share some of those foundational things you need to do, but SEO does evolve quickly over time, and mostly what evolves, though, are really the hacks. So when people go real deep in SEO, those are things that change over time. Some of the things that we're going to share, though, are pretty much foundational that we don't envision going away. So this is hopefully more of timeless advice. It's advice that we've been sharing for a long time. It helps build that foundation. And also, when it comes to Google, their algorithm gets smarter every year at showing up the most relevant search results to people who are browsing on their platform, because it's in Google's best interest to get better and better at this, at answering people's questions to the best of their ability, because then people are going to be more likely to continue to go to Google over time again and again. So it really is starting to basically reward behaviors like taking care of your customers, having a well set up on your website, looking at really that social proof. If people are having good experience with your brand, then that's going to help even just on a foundational level, with your SEO value as well. Yep. So it's getting smarter and smarter over time, and this is an area that's well worth spending effort. So do you want to start us off with your first tip for search engine optimization?
Yes, and there's really kind of two, you can divide SEO into two sides really, or two departments. There's on-site, so things you can do literally right on your website that make a difference, and then there's off-site, so things that are happening off of your website that affect SEO. So Brooks, for the on-site, I feel like one of the most common mistakes, and you see this a lot, but you see a lot of farms that will have, let's say, maybe a free WordPress website for their About Us page, their home page, maybe their blog, and then they'll go get a marketplace or some kind of a shopping cart and use that as a separate service on a separate domain. So myfarm.theshoppingcartplatform.com. And so literally they just point their visitors, they arrive at the WordPress site and they point them to a separate website for their store. And they try to brand the two together, and sometimes you can make them look good, but having those two websites, essentially you have two websites, and that really confuses Google, and you really reduce what I would call your SEO potency. So it's not, the worst SEO strategy out there is to go develop, multiple websites under your own farm name and have Google confused by all these URLs. Google does not look at them and combine them together. It looks at it as confusing to users, and it really will dock you.
So we get this question from folks who are looking at using GrazeCart for their shopping cart quite often, is we'll have people ask, hey, I already have an existing website out there. I spent money on a designer to build it for me, so I really just want to leave that there, and I just want to use you guys for the shopping cart. Is that possible? And the answer is yes, is what we tell people. Technically, you could do that. You can just use our shopping cart component. But we always let folks know that this is really, you're almost shooting yourself in the foot when it comes to an SEO perspective, and you really minimize your long-term potential impact when it comes to gaining awareness on Google, because it's really hard for Google to know that both of these two platforms is your business. So it's not going to know what products that you offer on your main website, because those are all carried on a different platform. So you're less likely to show up in those type of search results. And this is really important because we see a lot of our organic traffic come from the unique products that we have to offer. So maybe someone's searching for, hey, grass-fed soup bones near me, or beef heart near me. Those type of unique products that aren't commonly found in retail settings. Yeah. People are turning to the internet for them. But if you have a separate website and you don't even have the products on that website, then there's no way that Google's going to know that that's something that you could possibly compete for in search results. So really minimizes the long-term impact you can have with organic search results if you have those both separate.
Yeah, and so so my first thing is really just on-site SEO things, and a few other tips, Brooks, around on-site SEO, and we could go deep here, but we're just talking about some of the high residual things that we see a lot of people neglect sometimes. And another thing would be, Brooks, just monitoring how fast your website loads, because if your website's if it's loading slow, you don't realize how many people just hit the back button. This thing's not loading. And Google tracks that as people hit the back button, and it rewards site stickiness. So when people click from Google, stay on your site, your rankings go up in the algorithm. And so you'll notice, and we get emails about this, Brooks, but on GrazeCart, we have a limit of 1 megabyte, correct, per image file that's uploaded. So many people are, I want to upload a 5 megabyte image. Why wouldn't it let me do that? It's for one thing, it's just taxing on servers, and it's terrible for SEO. I mean, ideally, you want pictures way less than 1 megabyte.
And this is what I was saying earlier, as in, Google's algorithm is smart. It's looking out for the users. So you mentioned that the large photos it's taxing on SEO, but more importantly, it creates a poor customer experience. Because if I come to your website, people online and people in general in our society today have a very short attention span. So if it's going to take 5 seconds, 10 seconds for that homepage to load, I know that my brain automatically remembers that there's going to be other search results out there that will load much, much faster, and your brain's always trying to conserve energy. So people are likely to just click the back button, and Google is watching that because it knows, oh, this search result did not lead this person to what they were looking for. And if they see a trend of that over time, it's going to dock your ability to show up in those search results. Because again, the algorithm knows it's trying to help provide the most relevant search results to its users. So loading time's a big one.
Loading time, keeping your site mobile friendly, so making sure there's a mobile friendly version. Google knows that, and we will reward you for that. If you're a GrazeCart client, that you're in luck, because we include a mobile version right there for you, convert your existing website to a mobile version. The other thing, Brooks, I think about for on-site SEO is do things that are, again, they're residual, one and done, but they're also very helpful to your customers. but also good for SEO. So things like product descriptions.
Yeah.
That really helps customers out. It will help sell your product, and that's content that will really help with SEO. So again, that's a long-term thing. And I know it's hard to think about, creating product descriptions, but we ought to do an episode sometime, Brooks, on how we go about creating product descriptions so it's not taxing and you like what you end up with.
One of the most important marketing like golden rules that we talk about all the time is focusing on your customer's convenience.
Yeah.
Right. So when you see how it's a trend, we're talking about SEO today, but most of the stuff we're talking about is really just making your website optimized for your customer's convenience. So if you're not taking the time to make sure that your platform is optimized for mobile and someone is browsing your website on a mobile platform, that's going to provide a very poor experience to them. So in a way, Google is just making you take care of your customer. These are ways that
when it comes to on-site SEO, just Google is caring about your customer and the on-site experience.
So if you do it first, you're going to automatically end up getting rewarded. So if you just take that and adopt that mindset constantly, you're going to see that it has impact in other areas.
And you'll notice on every page that you create in GrazeCart, in the settings, there's a little SEO tab when you're editing the page, and you'll see a page title and description there. And all that is basically, instead of leaving it up to the Google bot to figure out how to display a preview in the search engine for your page, this is a way that you can basically tell Google, hey, this is what this page is about. Display this summary. So if you go to Seven Sons or you search for Seven Sons or different pages or products, you'll see that every one of our products, every single one of our pages has that title and that description. That tells Google, here's what to display to someone who's searching for this.
So this is on the listing. You Google for something, grass-fed beef Fort Wayne, Seven Sons comes up. There's a little title. That's the link they click on. Then there's a little short summary. So that's what we're talking about in the page title, page description. So GrazeCart gives you access to customize those. That way you're not leaving it up to Google. But other maybe you want to check with your platform, see if they allow you to do that as well, because these are definitely for your key pages. I get a lot of traffic. You want to spend some time optimizing that to try to capture the person's attention, make it more likely for them to click.
Exactly. So that's the basics, Brooks, for on-site. I don't know if you have anything else, but I thought we could jump over to then off-site SEO.
Yep.
So I would say one of the biggest things when it comes to off-site SEO is the number of websites that link back to you and how popular those websites are that link back to you. So this is something we really focused on in our early days. I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast before or not, but I know this is 10, 12 years ago, for an entire year, I made it a goal that every week I would find a website to list our website on. And again, this is residual efforts, because you get a website listing out there or another website that's linking back to you, whether it's someone else's food blog that's got a link in there for your website. You get that link set up once, it's always working for you every day out of the year, people clicking and going back to your website. And Google sees that. It ranks your popularity based on how many other websites point to yours. And it's also worth mentioning here that Google will put a lot more weight on a really popular website. Say New York Times does an article and links back to your website. Google looks at that as that's a lot of authority.
Yeah, this is just a classic peer-to-peer referral system. So, on the back of every book cover, the author is going to try to get other popular people to leave a review or a testimony on the book, and that adds credibility to the author. So Google is doing the same thing. It's looking at the different websites that link back to you. The more important the website is, the more SEO value that website has. It's going to say, if they're linking to Seven Sons must be a credible website as well.
So there I'm talking about link building, okay? So there's a lot of different places, whether it's blogs or, farm, like Eat Wild for businesses selling grass-fed products. Eat Wild is a great website to get a link on. But then there's something else that is really considered more of a business listing. And Brooks, the number one business listing you want is a Google My Business listing, correct?
Yeah. So again, that's where we're talking where most of the search traffic originates is from Google. So Google basically has a register of businesses that are registered with Google. So basically it verifies that you're a valid business, a credible business. And there's a process for you to do that. So it's basically an application process. And so you submit a form that you give them, I think, your tax number as well as your physical address. So you got to make sure you confirm and validate that. So once you do it, you show up on Google Maps. So Google knows where you're located. They also know what your website is. So you tell Google what your website is as well. So they associate your business with that website. Then at that point, they will also crawl your website for the content that's on that website as well. So they it learns more about what the content you have on that site. That'll happen automatically over time.
The crawling.
The crawling will over time automatically, but this is the best way to make sure you ensure that happens. Because if you launch a brand new website out there, there's like 300 websites launched every hour. I think I've read some statistics. So there's no way Google's going to be crawling all those websites all the time. Some of them are spam, and that's what you look like when you first start out. So the best way to make sure that you get registered with Google and you become on their radar is to register that Google business listing.
And always remember, Google loves nobody better than Google.
Yep.
So Google likes Google. So that means, if you Google the 7 Sons and see our business listing on Google.
It's that little profile on the right-hand side where you Google business name. You see that profile that has their hours, maybe link to the website, directions.
And that's, you want to make sure you fill out that listing as complete as you can. Add photos there and add events. Just fill that listing out and keep it updated and fresh. Google knows that. They know you're using their service. It's helpful to visitors, and it will reward you for that. And one way we keep we really keep it up to date is with reviews. Every week we're sending new customers an email. We've done a podcast on that email, but so we're constantly getting new reviews. And as Google sees that, I think we just hit 1,000 reviews on Google, Brooks.
Yep.
And Google looks at that and they say, just like that peer-to-peer, okay, as people are searching for grass-fed beef near me, Google's gonna skew a higher result for farms and businesses that have a better review.
Yeah, because they're looking out for the browser again. So if the grass-fed beef, this company Y has 1,000 5-star reviews, company Z has quite a few 1-star reviews, they're going to be more likely to push that browser to the company with the 5-star reviews.
So those are my 3, Brooks. Was focus on on-site SEO. There's just some basics as we covered in this episode. Number 2 was the link building. So other websites out there, get as many websites to send a link back to you. And then the 3rd was the business listings. And we just mentioned Google, Brooks. There's other business listings. Yelp would be another popular
Yelp
one.
is the one that like the Apple Maps uses. So that gets you on Apple Maps, as well as people are using that for restaurants and things as well. So if that's something that is applicable to you, you're going to make sure you register that as well.
And there's others. And something to keep in mind, Brooks, whether it's link building or putting a business listing out there on Yelp or Google Business, is to be consistent with how you display your name, exact spelling, and keep it consistent from one business listing platform or even other websites that are linking to you. Keep your names spelled consistently. Is it 7 Sons? Is it 7 Sons Farms? Farms LLC? Be consistent, because that helps with the potency of kind of that peer-to-peer review that Google has out there on you. So
this is foundational stuff. It's stuff that's proven, tried and true. It works. You're not going to see overnight results from it. So if you go and make all these changes right away, you're not going to see that you're listed number 1 with Google. Again, this is a competitive search platform, but it does build that foundation that over time, as you continue to get traffic to that website, you stay consistent with some of this stuff. That's what allows you to continue to slowly bump up in the rankings. And if you don't do some of this stuff, again, you're basically just shooting yourself in the foot. You have that weak foundation and standing with Google.
Yep, exactly. And of course, there's things, blogging and putting blog posts out there obviously help, but the
more content you have on your website, the more likely you can have content to show up in search results.
Again, but it's time, and it needs to be unique content and valuable content. So you just can't go copy and paste stuff. And all of your content has to be unique. And that's another thing we didn't mention, Brooks, when it comes to your business name is, avoid things like Smith Family Farms. There's going to be a lot of Smith Family Farms out there, or, as much as you think it might be valuable to use the term grass-fed beef in your name, well, there's a lot of competition for the term grass-fed. You want it to be easy to remember, easy to spell, and unique.
This is one point you want to be original. So it's helpful to go when you're creating website content, maybe you're writing product pages and descriptions and things like that. It's helpful to go get ideas from other people, but you want to make sure that you put your own voice to this, because if you just go and copy and paste from some other business that that's out there like yours, that doesn't do anything to help you. It doesn't do anything to help anyone else, because again, Google's looking for unique content to display in those search results, and when they see duplication happening, that just minimizes everyone's effort. So make sure that you keep this original.
Yep. And maybe the last final point, just know that your social media content Google doesn't care about that. And social media and Google are kind of at odds. So Google is not going to give you any credit for any of your social media content.
And that's one of the reasons why we focus so much on blogging in our early days and still do. We create a lot of content, rely a lot on videos, but we make sure that all those videos, and if you're doing this now, you're creating videos on social media, you're creating videos on YouTube to help tell your stories, show the behind the scenes.
Now, Google does like YouTube because they own it. So
Yeah, they do own that.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure that you always take those and create blog articles on your website as well, because that's where you want people to end up going anyways. Plus, it's another thing that could display in search results.
For example, this podcast, Brooks, will end up on YouTube, but it'll also have a blog on our website, and we'll have basically a transcript of the
makes it
episode.
more likely that we could show up in different search results as well. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and in the bottom of that blog article, so if you'll see on YouTube or you're on Apple Podcasts, you want to follow back to that link, go back to the article, because we're going to have a few resources to share that you can go deeper in learning more about SEO and how you can benefit from this strategy. So 2 things we're going to share with you. We have a blog article on, it's actually Chad Grau, our digital marketer, wrote this one that's all about product page optimization. So when it comes to writing those different product pages on your website, how do you make sure you optimize those for first your customer, but then optimize them for Google as well? And those 2 things come hand in hand. Great article and information on that. And then we're going to share a link to Moz.com, which is really an education platform that is out there sharing more about SEO. They're staying up to date with everything that's happening with Google. Great resources. They have, I think it's Whiteboard Fridays.
Whiteboard Wednesday, I'm pretty sure.
Is it? Okay.
Yep.
Probably makes sense, the W.
Yep.
But they have great content that comes out then every Wednesday that goes deep into SEO and the latest that's happening here. So highly recommend Moz. Those guys do a great job.
Cool.
So,
all right.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.